This part, dude. This part. Hello?
Just checking.
I opened the door to see that Eustace had already turned to leave, apparently satisfied knowing that I was up and about. Darcy saw me and gave me a friendly wave before following her bespectacled friend. A few of the others were shuffling out of the dormitories and into the hallway behind her. They seemed to have not noticed me at all. In the chapel, I tried to find myself a spot in the pews that was neither too close or too far away from the others to be noticeable.
What are you doing over there all by your lonesome?
So much for that. I smiled weakly at her as she sidled in next to me. Service itself went well. I threw myself into the worship, but I had a lingering feeling of shame that I could not shake during prayer. Between breaking my oath and interrupting a service by vomiting all over the place, I was increasingly worried about my standing in the eyes of the Lord. I worried as hard as I prayed, perhaps harder if I'm being entirely truthful. It was with some relief that the liturgy ended when it did. The worries had been winning out for most of the service. It is still very hot. Breakfast consisted of a thin, warm oat pottage. It was interesting watching the others eat. For the first time, I felt like I was seeing some of my fellow nuns less than completely put together. Little pieces of conversation floated around the table, but for the most part, it was a quiet affair. There was nothing for it. Sister Angela? What is it, Sister Hedwig? What did you get up to last night? I slept. I tried to ignore the snorts and giggles that arose from the others. I turned bright red and returned to my meal. So much for that avenue of investigation. It's true, I'm sure. She sleeps like a log. Catherine then leaned over her plate and whispered to me in such a manner that ensured everyone could hear. Don't worry, Hedwig. You'll get her next time. When everyone had finished eating, the superior stood to address the table. Everyone shifted in their seats to look more alert, all except for Angela, who had already been sitting with her back perfectly straight throughout the entire meal. Hedwig, Eustace, if you'd follow me. Angela, clear up if you would.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Abbess. Angela made a show of rising to her feet. Of course, Abbess. I could feel her staring daggers into my back as Eustace and I followed the superior outside. She led us inside, toward the stairs to the second floor of the main building. Where are we going? To the library. Eustace is going to help you get started with your work. Yes, of course. I was the chronicler now, after all. I realized as we crested the stairs that I didn't actually know what that meant.
I have my own work to do, just so you know.
I'm sure Hedwig will only need your assistance with the very basics. The library was a very odd room indeed. I had pictured it as a regimented hall with organized bookshelves lining the walls, perhaps with a long table in the middle for a shared reading space. In reality, it was certainly a room with bookshelves and a table, but it was as if someone had squashed the idea in my head to fit into this second-floor room. The table was off-kilter. The books were scattered across the shelves, seemingly at random. It isn't much.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I could see Eustace raise an eyebrow out of the corner of my eye. I suppose she had expected me to balk at the state of the room, but I was thrilled to be in the presence of so much scripture again. Not only that, but there was something about the disorganization that spoke to me. It certainly had the most charm of any of the rooms beyond my cell I'd visited yet. You surprise me.
Thank you for the vote of confidence.
It is rather topsy-turvy in here.
I have a system. Have I ever lost anything?
I suppose I cannot argue with results.
That's right.
Anyway, this desk in the corner, this was Catherine's. You'll be sharing this space with Eustace often, I imagine. I see. I was led to a little desk in the corner closest to the hallway door. I hadn't noticed it when we'd walked in. The whole thing was obscured by a pile of books and folded up documents. It was almost like I had my own little room, with walls I could peer over. These large books are what you'll be writing in, and I'll be writing the events of each day previous, as well as details of any important correspondence. Oh, right, of course, chronicling. I tapped my forehead in an attempt to make a knowing gesture. Eustace will sort through any mail we receive and put anything important on your desk to be noted. Then you can pass the documents to her for filing.
I have a system.
Well, if you have any more questions, I'm sure Eustace will be happy to assist you. I must go and make my rounds with the other sisters before attending to my own work. Eustace and I gave bowing nods to the abbess as she left the room. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have put it in this. It's still too hot. It's been like 45 minutes. As soon as the door was closed, Eustace shuffled over to her own desk on the opposite side of the room to mine, with its own piles of bric-a-brac, threatening to topple over at any minute. I drummed my fingers on the desk for a moment before reaching for one of the massive empty books the superior had indicated. I opened it up and marveled at the blank pages. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was back where I belonged. That is, until I picked up a quill. I soon realized that without scripture to transcribe, I was at a total loss confronted with white paper. What should I write, do you think?
That's your job, not mine.
Yes, well, it's all a bit new to me now that I think about it.
I would have thought you'd given it quite a bit of thought before deciding to leave your cell.
Well, I wanted to say that I hadn't decided that at all, but I couldn't. Be that as it may, it is a little different, actually, being here. What are you working on?
Cataloging.
What's that?
It's something that's very difficult to do if someone is talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We sat in silence for a minute. I stared at the blank pages in front of me again for a moment, feeling a little stung.
Come on, I'll show you.
I hadn't noticed Eustace walking over to my side of the room. She was looking over my wall of books with a no-nonsense expression on her face. I stood up, not wanting to irritate her any further.
The library here houses a lot of scripture, obviously, but it also carries many other books and documents. For example, recipes, or songbooks. Over here, we have a little chess section.
A whole section for chess?
Yep. I didn't intend for it. Things just sort of ended up that way.
How's that?
Well, I have a small budget for procuring requests, and some people here got really into chess.
I see.
Let's see. Some gardening books. Darcy reads those, obviously. Some history books. Tarot.
What on earth is tarot? I'll leave this one for a screenshot. Somebody's got to get that.
You know, fortune telling.
Fortune telling? Who on earth would meddle with that kind of thing here?
You'd be surprised.
I grimaced. The more I discovered about this abbey, the more it felt like it was occupied by a horde of Sarabates. Eustace ran her fingers over the spine of some of the books, clearly looking for something.
Here's some classical stuff. Greek plays and so on, and histories. That was all Catherine's department, make no mistake. Actually,
she gestured idly around us with one arm.
Most of this place was. She read everything in here at least once, I'd imagine.
Wow. That's impressive.
Well, I've read all of it twice or more, but yes, it is fairly impressive.
What's in there? I pointed at a door off to one side of the room, nestled between messy shelves.
That's the other half of my job.
She produced a ring of keys and inserted one into the door, fiddling with it for a moment before unlocking it with a loud clunk. Inside was another storage room of sorts. Only instead of books, it was filled with boxes, chests, and what could only be described as a horde of miscellanea.
This is where we keep some of the Abbey's more notable possessions. We've got some relics.
You have relics here?
Steady on, and nothing particularly interesting. I'm actually not sure how many of them are real. It's a bit of a racket. Relics. You wouldn't believe how many people claim they've got the Holy Prepuce in a vault somewhere.
The Holy...
It's best you don't ask. The point is, if you took every piece of the true cross on display around the world and put them together, it'd be taller than the Tower of London. And that's just the Chrisley relics. With saints, it's even more ridiculous. It's my job to confirm the provenance of the relics we hold here, and I'm not holding my breath for any of them.
Well, what else do you keep in here?
There's this fellow, for starters.
She tapped the breastplate of a suit of armor on display in the corner of the little room. My heart leapt into my throat. That glint of metal was all too familiar. What is that?
I suppose you wouldn't know what it is, would you?
Oh, no. I know what a suit of armor is when I see one. I was just curious if this one holds any particular significance.
We've been holding it for safekeeping for the Receiver General of some well-to-do estate.
What's a Receiver General?
A well-paid bookkeeper.
Oh. I hazarded another question that I hoped would sound casual. And you're the only one with a key to this room. What a responsibility.
Oh, the Superior also has a key. She's got the keys for most things, I would think.
That makes sense. In case one goes missing.
Steady on. Maybe I have one in case hers goes missing.
I glanced around at the piles of assorted bits and pieces scattered around the room. Of course.
Anyway, that just about wraps up the tour, I think.
Oh, are you keeping the sword in here, by any chance? I noticed it was gone from the courtyard. It was there yesterday morning, and then it was just gone after evening service. Eustace let out a ragged sigh and pinched the bridge of her nose. When she spoke, she had the unmistakable air of someone choosing her words very diplomatically.
Yes, Hedwig, I am keeping Catherine's sword here. The Superior asked me to move it.
I'm sorry.
Let's go. We've both got work to do.
Holy Prepuce. Is Jesus' foreskin left on earth after his circumcision true story? No, they didn't explain that. They purposely went right over it. That's crazy. I didn't know that. She ushered me out of the little room, back into the library. I skulked to my new desk, well aware I'd overstepped some boundary. Eustace sat at her own desk and began sifting through pieces of parchment. Occasionally, she would scribble something in a ledger. From the sound of it, she was taking some feelings out on the paper. I tapped my own quill against the empty book in front of me. I hadn't the foggiest idea what to write, but I needed to do something. I supposed that the date was as good a place as any to start. Excuse me, but what is the date today?
It's the 11th of November.
Thank you. Oh, fiddle. I wrote today's date, but I'm writing about yesterday.
So cross it out.
Right, okay, the 10th of November. On the 10th of November, well, a lot happened, didn't it? I felt a flash of inspiration when I thought of all the things I could write about my life. What the superior had forced me to do, how awkward I had felt being thrust into a double life. But I, of course, couldn't do that. I had to focus on the basics, which was harder than it sounded. How did Catherine like to write things?
I do have my own work to do, Hedwig.
I know, I'm not sure how best to write things down. Eustace kept scribbling something in her ledger, not answering. Could I take a look at her old chronicles, perhaps?
No, you can't.
Why?
Because I don't have them anymore.
Where are they?
Why are you so intent on pestering me about Catherine?
I had started sniffling. I couldn't help it. I bit my lip and tried to control myself, but it was too late. Eustace kept writing in her ledger. It was so quiet. I could hear a tear hitting the parchment on the desk in front of me. I wasn't trying to be a pest.
Don't be so modest. You're quite good at it.
I lurched out of my chair. The precarious pile of books on the desk wobbled, and I could hear glass shattering as I flounced away, sobbing uncontrollably. I fumbled my way deeper into the library. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away.
Hedwig! Hedwig! Come back!
I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't listen. I ran into the rows of shelves, not paying any attention to where I was going. Even if I had been, it would have been hard to see. I was bawling by that point, with my eyes scrunched up and full of tears. I stumbled around blindly. A few of the books fell off their shelves as I brushed past. I found a corner in one of the aisles and fell to a crouch, curling into a little ball and burying my head between my knobbly knees. It was all coming out. The embarrassment, the shame, the anger, and the fear. I'm not even sure it was even Eustace's snippy comment that really did me in. Eustace was far less intimidating than a disappearing swordsman, but nevertheless, here I was. It really was quite dark back there. I couldn't tell how far I had gotten into the bookshelves. The library had no windows. All light emanated from a simple chandelier above the desks and table. I tried to dry my face with my robe, and it didn't do much, considering I was still crying. I felt quite pathetic. For a little while, I bumped around in the dark, hoping to just stay out of Eustace's earshot. It wasn't long until I staggered into one of the shelves, though, sending books cascading onto my head like hail. I yelped in surprise.
Hedwig?
I looked up to see Eustace standing above me. She looked quite worried.
I'm really sorry, Hedwig. Will you come back to your desk?
Eustace crouched down next to me and took my hands in hers. She squeezed them gently.
I shouldn't have been so rude to you just then. I know it's not your fault. It's okay, I understand. Let's go and talk about it at our desks, yeah?
No, you don't understand. No one does. No one can.
You're inquisitive because you've never been outside your cell. It's really not your fault. I'm having a hard time with losing Catherine, and I don't know how to handle questions about her.
It's not just that.
What else is there?
I looked up at Eustace's face. It was hard in the dark, but I could make out a weary attempt at a reassuring smile flickering on her lips. It's nothing. It's nothing that'd do to say now, I suppose. I'm just all over the place, just in total. Eustace's smile grew, but she looked altogether sadder. She reached out to adjust my messy cowl, then stood up, guiding me back to a standing position with her hand.
Come on, up you go. Let's go back, yeah?
I nodded, still sniffling.
I really am sorry. I was being quite cruel.
It's all right. Don't keep apologizing. You sound just like me. I laughed feebly at my own joke. I just wanted to show that there weren't any hard feelings, even if it was far too early to really know that. Eustace patted me on the shoulder and sat me down in my chair, then adjusted some of the wobbly books back into a slightly less precarious position.
That sword killed her, you know. That's why I was a bit tetchy.
Yeah, the superior told me as much. I was just curious because why was the sword left out there? In the cloister, I mean. It seems so dangerous to leave that sort of thing around, especially when it had just been used to...
I can see why you'd find it strange, but I think there's a good object lesson for you here. You're not wrong that it is a little odd to leave a sword lying around, but that's because you're an outsider. Listen.
Eustace's voice had returned to its usual monotone register once we'd gotten up back to the desks, and she reached out sharply to tilt my chin up without a shred of tenderness she'd used amidst the bookshelves.
Inside and outside, they aren't value judgments. We are all outsiders to someone. I dare say we'd both feel out of place in Persia.
I see. You're saying I don't know the customs.
It's something like that. It might be something even harder to define than customs. History, perhaps.
I didn't expect to feel this alone. We're all Catholic, after all.
I think one of the first things you'll pick up on is how little that matters.
I think I'm already there. Halfway, at least.
I'm sure you had a very specific idea of what life was like for us when you were in your cell that's now being challenged by reality.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yet, you're completely correct. Everyone here is Catholic. We're all oblates.
And yet after only one full day, I've heard cursing, filthy jokes, and downright meanness from the mouths of my sisters. I flushed a little. Not to drag our fight out. I do accept your apology.
That's all right. You're not wrong, but that also doesn't make anyone here less Catholic.
Well, it certainly seems like not many people here are holding to the letter.
That doesn't matter.
Doesn't it?
No, I don't think it does. The church encompasses the world so wholly that it's very hard to not be part of it to some degree.
I'm not sure I understand.
Do you like money?
Truth told, I've never held any money.
Okay, bad example then. Perhaps...
No. Try to explain.
You at least understand the concept of money, right?
Of course.
Do you think money's fair?
I think money certainly creates an opportunity for unfairness, so in that sense, I think I'd say it's quite a bad thing.
Wow. Okay, that's further than I was expecting you to go, actually.
Well, that certainly happens a lot in the Bible. In fact, Eustace held up her hands and chuckled softly.
No need to quote Ecclesiastes.
I can't for Order of Ecclesia. That's my only Ecclesiastes. Right? Did I put it together? Context? From the Castlevania game? Ecclesiastes? Ecclesiastes?
I understand how you got there.
I was going to quote Matthew, actually.
1924?
No, 624.
Actually, that is a great way to illustrate my point.
Latin.
Ye be not able to serve God and riches.
Mammon.
Mammon is riches.
Yeah, I suppose a demon of riches.
You think Mammon is a being? You don't think it's a metaphor?
What's the difference?
Good answer, actually. Anyway, we both agree then that you can't worship money and God.
Of course.
But we are nuns. We tend to be poor, theoretically at least. Would it be wrong for the poor to covet money?
Covet, I think, is a strong word.
But they are poor. Poor exists because rich exists because poor exists. They're opposite ends of a spectrum that governs their day-to-day lives. How could a poor person not covet money? Food, clothes, shelter, things provided by lords who have a lot of money, which is provided them by kings who have even more money.
So you're saying that everyone worships riches? Nobody is truly Catholic?
No. I'm saying that money is as essential as air to people who want to live in this world. And when money is scarce, the church provides for them. We provide for them, by extension. You know money is evil. You understand the inequality money inherently causes, and the ways in which the Bible describes this. Yet if you were to leave tomorrow, if you just struck out on your own to live a life in London or what have you, how could you without money? Who would ever provide for you but the church?
I'm afraid I don't quite understand.
The church is air. If nobody here was Catholic, none of them could breathe.
I didn't really know what to make of this. Eustace had certainly practiced this expression of her worldview, but I didn't fully understand what she was talking about. Partially because I was still slightly dazed and over-emotional, but more because it sounded very convenient. This was a very dim view of the church and of faith.
Does that make sense?
I understand what you're trying to say, at least.
Well, I'm glad I did it some justice, at least. Catherine's version was a lot clearer.
That was something Catherine said.
That was paraphrased, but more or less.
This tea is too hot, and I can't keep this voice up without this tea. So I need a second. I will never put this tea in this thing again.
Catherine could talk about it 3 times longer than I could on the subject. Most subjects, to tell you the truth. I tend to ramble.
I'll have to think about all this. It is a most interesting opinion for an Abbey's chronicler to hold. Eustace had turned to walk back to her own desk.
Like I've already told you, Catherine was a very interesting person.
I should have liked to have met her. Doesn't it suck when the thermos works? I know, I needed the second cup. In fact, I meant to get one, but the stream started too fast. To be honest, I made pizza at 6 o'clock, and I had 2 slices of pizza and a chickpea crunch salad, and I threw this in here very fast. I started brewing this tea after the stream was live, and I just didn't grab the mug. So, Yeah, I had pizza tonight, okay? Minky Moo's grandpa died. Things happen. Life changes, okay? Desperate times call for desperate measures, okay? All right? You want to keep this up, Gene? You want to keep this up after that bomb was dropped? Thank you. Yeah. I'm just playing. Don't you feel bad now? What the fuck? It's not wedding day? Wedding day. Come on. Don't you work in books? Or did they get rid of you there? She sat back down at her desk and began working in her ledger again. The same old Eustace had fully returned. I'm sorry, Gene, I love you. Dude, I love a salad with apples and craisins in it. Oh, you work in pianos now.
Sounds easy.
Well, those are still letters. Oh, I guess S isn't on a scale. I guess S isn't on a scale. That's true. We got A through G accounted for. Funny Jack said working in pianos is easy. He only understands the C major scale. He doesn't understand the sharps and flats. It's a shame her chronicles are gone then. I could learn a lot from them, it sounds like. I picked up my quill and began writing. This conversation had certainly been illuminating. Inspiring even, although not in the sense that I wanted to write like Catherine. To tell you the truth, I couldn't believe Eustace was relaying whatever Catherine's opinion had been fairly. It certainly did nothing to shake the idea that I was in the midst of a group of Cerebates rather than Benedictines. So I felt that, for now, I should chronicle things in an as uplifting and holy a manner as I could. I would log the daily activities, liturgies, mealtimes, and so on, and I would highlight the godly deeds I witnessed throughout the day. I reasoned that this would be a healthier than listing the decidedly ungodly things I noticed. I would search for the positive, as it were. Are there any letters I need to transcribe in here today?
Not today, no.
Does much mail come through here?
Loads.
Who for? Eustace peered at me over her glasses, witheringly.
Most everyone, I should think. There isn't much else to do here.
Who writes the most?
You're being nosy.
I'm just curious. You never know who has a gift for writing.
It's Catherine, if I had to guess. Catherine the First. She's very popular.
Really now? How interesting.
I suppose. There's no accounting for taste.
A thought crossed my mind. Are you sure there's nothing I could help with? Are there any letters that Catherine II was supposed to sort? I could take a look. If there were...
There aren't.
Really?
I've already taken care of any unopened mail in Catherine's possession.
I see. In that case, I think I might be finished. Eustace rose from her chair and walked over to mine. She leaned over my shoulder. Holding her spectacles against the bridge of her nose, she read aloud.
10th November, year of our Lord, 1482. The hours were observed in the morning and evening liturgies. Luncheon was held in the rectory, as was supper. Well, we actually had breakfast as well, but I suppose you weren't there for that.
Breakfast before liturgy?
Sometimes. Vacant position of dearly beloved chronicler fulfilled, rest in peace. That's nice. By myself. A kindness was visited upon me by Sister Moira. What was that?
Well, she prayed with me in the bathhouse when I was feeling lost.
Well, if it mattered to you, is that all you're writing?
For now, I think. I'll probably go a little longer as I find my footing.
Fair enough. Catherine would fill a whole page. That much I can tell you.
A full page for each day?
Yeah. sometimes more. You don't have to do it that way, of course, but you were asking about what her writing was like.
No, that's very helpful. Well, what now?
I have more work to do still. You can do as you please.
I think I might walk around and check in on some of the others. Maybe I can fill up pages hearing what others are accomplishing.
That's not a bad idea.
I stood up to leave. Before I could step away, however, Eustace gripped me by the shoulders. She looked into my eyes with a gaze even more serious than the one she'd used in the garden.
I need you to promise me something, Hedwig.
Yeah?
Never go wandering around back there on your own. Can you do that for me?
Back
into the bookshelves. Not without me.
I don't understand. She squeezed my shoulders even tighter.
You can borrow anything you want from the library, of course, but I can't have you going back there without my assistance. Or better yet, just ask me to get you what you need for you. My organization system is precarious. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Some books here are very, very important and very, very valuable. I'm sworn to protect them, and my organization system is, well, it's precarious, as you've seen. It'd be a weight off my mind if I didn't have to worry about anyone else rummaging around back there.
Of course. I shan't touch anything.
Thank you.
Oh, we gotta go back there. Okay, that is so sus. I'm gonna grab a mug really fast because it is too hot. Give me 1 second. We're gonna take not a full break. I'm just gonna go run, but I will kind of do like a little VOD cut just so that we go back to things. Give me one. All right, let me try this out again. Let me assure you, as the door closed behind me, I felt a flare of embarrassment. I was just treated like a total fool, I thought. I had half a mind to turn back around and tell Eustace to stuff her sentimental stories about Catherine and show me the sword under lock and key. I didn't, of course. And thank goodness for that, honestly. No. I won't explain what I mean just yet. Let me tell you something about that chronicler position. It might have taken a fair bit, but it did teach me a thing or two about spinning a good story. Anyway. Yeah, this is a throat coat situation. Two bags of slippery elm. The cool air of the hallway hit my face hard after being in the stuffy library for so long. I could feel the damp patches around my eyes and cheeks where my tears had been drying. I wiped my face with my sleeve to try and erase any lingering evidence.
Oh, fancy running into you here.
Moira was standing just down the hall, carrying a tray adorned with a small pitcher and some sliced rye.
I was just on my way to bring you and Eustace some luncheon.
Lunch?
Oh, of course. You wouldn't have had that before. It's just a snack between meals.
Is that allowed?
Allowed? Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
I looked side to side nervously. For what? I'm really not sure. A disapproving superior or worse? Angela? Moira chuckled again and set the tray down on the stone railing overlooking the cloister, and then gestured for me to join her. The little pitcher was full of wine, and there were pieces of crumbly cheese mixed in with the slices of bread.
You can dip the bread in the wine if you'd like.
Dip the... All right. I picked up a piece of bread and dunked it into the pitcher. The wine turned it quite an odd color that reminded me a bit of bile on flagstone, but I resisted lingering on it too long and popped it in my mouth. That's... quite nice, actually. It's called Thopf. Everyone here loves it, more or less. And the cheese? Goat cheese. From one of the ones Dorothy takes care of. I tried a piece. It was also delicious. This might be a silly question, but all this food, is it Is it different from what I was served? I know I took all my meals in my cell, but I don't remember any of it tasting quite this, well, good. Well, we do a lot of cooking with ingredients from the stores and the pantry, and we have to make things last. Maybe you just got unlucky most of the time. Things don't always taste this fresh. Or maybe, well, Oh, nothing. I was just thinking that maybe it tastes so much better because you're, not in your cell anymore. I don't understand. Moira took a piece of cheese and chewed it thoughtfully. A new lease on life and all that. Nothing tastes better than freedom. My first instinct was to chide Maria for this comment, but I resisted. Instead, I chose to act the part and say something that I imagined someone who belonged in this group of women might say. Fuck yeah. I would imagine Catherine disagrees that we're free up here. And I suppose by that logic, eating outside the monastery would taste even better. I was actually going to say that a king's food must taste impossibly good. I was on my way to that conclusion as well, although I think we might have been approaching it from different angles. But I like the way you think. We should plan a picnic sometime. You and me. We should propose it to the superior. That's a lovely idea. Moira clasped my hands in hers and beamed. Oh, what fun it always is to have someone new here. She let me go and lifted the tray up again. I must be getting the rest of this to Eustace. Where are you off to next, Busy Bee? I'm not sure, actually. I felt like I should sort of make the rounds, so to speak. Get to know what everyone else does around here. Grand. Darcy and Charity are busy in the kitchens right now, I think, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind you poking your head in. I'm sure someone's in the cellars around now if you want to go and learn about the wine. Oh, there's so many options. Go forth and explore, I say. Explore I shall. I smiled and bowed my head, and then excused myself to head downstairs. I selfishly opted against bothering the cooks while they were busy with something I'd be eating later, and I instead headed toward the stairs. Sorry, Darcy heads. I made my way down to the cloister, and through the downstairs hall, I decided that I might poke my head into the undercroft. Well, look who it is. Hello, Hedwig. Hello. Done with the chronicling already? Yes, actually. Well, there wasn't much to write about yesterday, really. Wasn't there? Did you make sure to immortalize your grand old prank? No. Really now. I'm surprised. I would have thought that was the whole point. Yeah, how else would anyone know it happened? Well, I mostly wrote about the important things. The services, the meals, so on. Those are your important things. Huh. Give yourself a little credit, Hedwig. Listen, I'll add it in tomorrow, perhaps. You should. Otherwise, we'll all forget about it eventually. Or pretend we forgot about it. That's right. In war, one must keep score, so Adela keeps telling me. War? Relax. We're definitely not planning a counterattack to your door prank. Yeah, we just been discussing faith and whatnot. The Nicene Creed and its many subtleties. Oh, how interesting. Which ones? Which subtleties? Filioque. Oh, that's... Well, I suppose I wouldn't count it as a subtlety, but that would be my contribution. Why not? Ow. I couldn't agree more, Hedwig. I have a habit of understating things for effect, you understand. Naturally. The pair smiled at me, and I could sense they were politely ushering me onwards so they could continue whatever conversation they'd actually been having. I decided to press just a little further, however. What have you two been up to today? I decided I'd see what the other work around here is like since I finished things up so early. Well, there isn't exactly much almonding to do up on this hill, so I've been helping out in the cellars. Oh, and what have you been doing? Catherine and Margaret exchanged a glance. This, more or less? Listen, not to sound like our dear old friend Eustace, but it's a euphemism. Well, not entirely. If something needs lifting, they'll shout. They being Marta and Flora? Typically, yeah. But more often than not around here, helping in the cellars, well, it really means, well, nothing. Standing around, gossiping, wandering around the cloister for a bit. And the superior doesn't mind this? Hey, now, steady on. We wouldn't be telling you this if we thought you'd blabber on to her about it. I won't. I was just worried that you might get in trouble. It's never really been much of an issue. Soup can't be everywhere. And let's keep it that way? Of course. Lovely. I knew you could be trusted. I've always said I had a good feeling about her, haven't I, Catherine? That's right. She has. I couldn't help but be filled with a gush of pride at this remark, but I did my utmost to tamp it down. Well then, I'll just leave you to do your important work, shall I? Until next time. See you at luncheon, Hedwig. I parted with a gracious smile and walked toward the corridor of barrels I had found Adela and Flora in the day before. Marta was standing next to an open cask. She was holding a wooden ladle, looking thoughtful.
Ah, Hedwig. Finished upstairs already?
Yes, I am. I felt it'd be nice to get to know everyone else's jobs a little bit better.
Smart girl. Flora could learn a thing or two from you.
I heard that. Oh, I heard that. Flora's voice echoed from deep within the rows of barrels.
Good. I have her check inventory sometimes, especially if she's been acting up.
I see. The barrel in front of Marta smelled absolutely putrid. Nonetheless, she dipped her ladle into the dark liquid, raised it to her lips, sipping gently and furrowing her brow thoughtfully. Is it supposed to smell like that?
Truth be told, I haven't a clue. This is a slightly different kind of wine than I'm used to.
I must confess, I did not know there were different kinds.
It's sherry. Adela pestered me to try making it the moment she arrived at the Abbey.
Goodness, she must be very particular.
She has expensive taste, yes. We had to get a fancy new distiller set up in the workshop just to try making it.
The Abbey could afford that? I was just talking to Eustace about our acquisition budget.
I try not to think about money most of the time, to tell you the truth, but I've heard the Superior has access to more than you'd expect.
I suppose I wouldn't really know what to expect, but isn't that wrong, though?
If it is true, it would certainly mean this Abbey is stuck in a uniquely unfortunate position of having a lot of charity to give and no one to give it to. I'd urge you to quell any Cistercian tendencies. I'm not sure the church could withstand another order fracturing.
Marta took another whiff of the unfinished wine in her spoon. She wrinkled her nose and emptied the spoon back into the barrel.
Anyhow, there's little use in speculating on speculations. We have a distiller, and all I need to worry about is making sure my sherry isn't a disaster. Would you be a dear and find Adela? I need her to tell me if I'm on the right track with this.
Of course. Where would she be this time of day?
She does this and that, so I haven't a clue, to tell you the truth. I'm just too old to be given the runaround.
I understand. I'll find her. I bowed my head and left the way I'd come. It turned out I didn't have to go very far. After jogging back up the stairs to the cloister, I decided to check the gardens, where I had found Adela and Darcy tending to a row of vegetables. Hedwig! Hello?
Hiya.
Hello. Marta actually asked me to find you, Adela.
Is she meddling with the sherry again? She's gonna ruin it, I swear.
Oh, be careful. Latin. Sherry is very important. And delicate. For sherry, I will swear. Fair enough. Goodbye, my friends. I'll speak to you again once I walloped some sense into Sister Marta. With words, Hedwig, don't worry.
The old word wallop.
That's correct. I'd never hit anyone, although over sherry. No, that's not funny.
It's a little funny.
Because really, I wouldn't.
And that's what makes it funny to say you would, I get it.
I suppose we have very different senses of humor. Adela gave an approving little nod to Darcy, and then turned to leave.
Would you mind helping me finish what she was helping me with?
Of course. What can I do?
Pick the rest of these carrots with me and put them in the box.
She pointed at a wooden crate half filled with plump, reddish vegetables. All right then, do I just...
You gotta push them down and then yank them out like this.
Darcy flopped to her knees and gripped a clump of green stems that were poking up out of the soil. She pointed at a little purple mound poking up out of the dirt.
Watch this.
She pressed the carrot into the earth and then pulled it out of the ground with remarkable ease and then tossed it several yards into the crate.
It's easy. You try.
I knelt down gingerly in the soil, a little apprehensive about getting my frock dirty. I rummaged around in the nearest patch of greens and traced my finger down a stem until I uncovered the top of a carrot and pressed. Nothing happened. Press harder. I gave it my all. The resistance finally broke after a few difficult seconds, and I nearly fell face first into the carrot patch. Oh!
There you go. Now pull it out.
I regained my composure and removed the carrot from the earth quite easily. Why does that work?
You're breaking off some of the little roots holding it in place.
That's miraculous. I never would have guessed.
It just works. Plants are wonderful. Thank God for plants.
She continued harvesting carrots, and I followed suit. There's certainly a lot here.
We need as much food as we can get before winter starts, and the carrots are good at everything.
I hadn't thought about that. What else do you grow for winter?
Peas and sprouts and cress and parsnips.
Goodness!
And leeks and celeriac and beans and beets and...
You take care of all of it?
With help, but yes, I do.
Remarkable. That's very admirable.
I like to help. And when people help me help well, that's a very good feeling indeed.
I picked up the pace a little, slightly more confident about my carrot-pulling abilities all of a sudden. And you tend to the animals as well.
Yep.
You've certainly got a lot of responsibilities.
Actually, not that many animals.
I think even just a few ducks might be too much for me to handle.
The ducks are friendly, so that helps. Other than that, we have the sheep, and, well, that's a shared responsibility.
Really? With who?
Man for the village. He spends some time up here at a little house, and he helps me with the sheep.
I didn't know there were others living up on the hill with us.
On this hill, it's just him, and he's a bit of a walk from us.
It was strange, having a more in-depth conversation with Darcy. Her odd manner of speaking, I must confess, had belied the thoughtfulness with which she listened and responded. Her words came thick and slow like treacle, and sometimes it felt like any emotions they carried were delayed. Nonetheless, it was clear that she was lucid and intelligent. Just as much, if not more so, than anyone else I had spent time with so far at the convent. So I picked my next questions carefully. It was a rare privilege to see you in the process of having a vision yesterday.
Oh, right, yeah. Was it now?
Yes. It's a beautiful and a very powerful thing.
I wish I could remember 'em.
Eustace writes them down for you, doesn't she?
Yeah, but that's not the same. I do appreciate her doing it, but I wish I could keep track of them myself.
You don't remember them at all afterward.
Not at all.
You know, the one you had yesterday was rather prophetic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, fire? Goat? It was perfectly accurate.
I predicted your prank.
Darcy, would you believe me if I told you that wasn't a practical joke that I came up with? That I really did. I saw a monster of some sort. And a goat.
Probably not. But go on.
I promise you I did.
Well, you know me, I do think that this place is haunted. But I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like that. It's a little haunted here, but not goat sacrifice haunted. So that'd be strange. I suppose a practical joke is more plausible. But if it wasn't your prank, whose could it have been?
Well, that's just the thing. I don't know. An idea came to me in a flash. Do you think I could read Eustace's full journal about yesterday's vision? Perhaps there had been some other clue written down in there that I had missed, something that would help me determine what really happened. Or at the very least, comfort me with the knowledge that I was not truly being pursued by ghosts or devils.
I don't know. You'd have to ask her.
Really? It's your vision.
Yeah, but it's her writing.
Fair enough. There was a long pause. That was the end of the matter, evidently. So does the Abbey keep any goats?
No goats, just sheep and ducks.
I was just curious, honestly. I was under the impression that goats were common fixtures at abbeys. The same books that had led me to assume that the abbey I lived in would follow some sort of structural plan that had also painted a rather specific picture of their inhabitants. Not having any goats to tend was at least not as egregious as condensing the hours, but it did complicate my understanding of what I had seen a night prior. Then again, I suppose Darcy would have noticed if a goat had gone missing.
Would you like to meet one?
Meet a goat?
Yeah, because I could probably arrange that if you want to see a goat. They're very sweet and funny. Last time I saw a goat, it chewed on my sleeve, and it took a big hole out of it, and I had to get Moira to sew it back up. And then I had one sleeve with slightly less fabric than the other sleeve, so it looked funny.
That does sound very fun. No, I was actually curious because if I had seen a goat, where would it have come from? An impish grin crept over Darcy's face as she loaded carrots into the crate.
I think I know where this is going. You've been having me on a bit, haven't you? We're working on a new practical joke?
No.
Yeah, I knew you had to be joking when you said you saw a goat because there are no goats here, so you couldn't have seen one. But if you really wanted to get your hands on one for a new prank...
Sister Hedwig. I whipped around to see Angela, looming over the vegetable patch, looking as icy as ever. Yes, Sister Angela? You were meant to be working in the library today. Instead, I've been looking all over for you. Yes, well, I finished my work early, and I'm sure you must have done that a superlative job. The superior wishes to speak to you before luncheon. I could taste the poison in those words, and I almost enjoyed it. Almost. I'm sure she wants to know how my first day of real work went. I was just helping Darcy here with the carrots, and then I'll be on my way. I am to take you to her now. I stood up, brushing my hands off on my robe. I think I know my way to her office if you'd like to exchange places with me. No, I don't think so. I was given a job to do. Yeah, well, I was too. Oh? You're taking orders from Darcy now? It wasn't really an order.
It's all right, Hedwig. I can take it from here.
Wonderful. Let us be going then. I tossed Darcy an apologetic glance that I hoped she caught as I followed Angela away from the garden. We walked in silence to the superior's office. Angela's presence usually made me feel meek, but something about helping Darcy had given me a small boost of confidence. I spent the walk imagining several witty and biting things I could say to Angela if she happened to speak. She didn't, of course, not until we arrived at the superior's door. Well, have a productive meeting. She made a show of turning on her heel and marching away briskly. I thought of a few more clever things I could have said before clearing my mind as best I could, and I knocked on the door. After yesterday's arguments with the superior, I had resolved to be as polite and demure as possible. I would speak to the superior with the respect her station demanded, and I would save any pithiness for an imagined sister Angela. The door swung open, and the superior ushered me inside. We exchanged basic pleasantries before diving right into the heart of the matter. How was your first day of working in the library? It's more tumultuous than I expected, Your Reverence. Really now, I wouldn't have expected Eustace to be a particularly difficult person for you to work with. I suppose I have a lot to live up to. Everyone's expectations make me nervous. I sympathize. Try not to let it bother you, however. The most important expectations here are mine. Yes, Your Reverence. Try not to be nervous. You are performing admirably for me so far. Of course, Your Reverence. There's no need to overcorrect for your insolent outburst yesterday. Speak to me as you would anyone else. Yes, Yes. I bowed my head a little. Truth be told, I was getting increasingly frustrated with how arbitrary every little application of tradition around here was. I was being admonished for speaking properly now, after I had been so rude. Honestly. Anyway, we are going to take a little walk. Right now? Yes. It's time you met the accused. Won't it be fairly obvious that we're gone? Everyone else will be busy finishing their morning work or preparing luncheon. Outside of creeping away to the hospitalum in the dead of night, there's no time like the present for us to leave unannounced. I see. The idea did not thrill me. Then again, speaking with James had been my idea in the first place, so I had little room to object. Does anyone else know? Of course not. She opened the door and held it for me. In the best of circumstances at this point in time, the Abbey felt strange and alien to me still. Knowing that we were attempting to slip out without anyone noticing, however, made the place feel actively hostile. I jumped at every mid-morning shadow, held my breath passing every blind corner, even though the superior walked ahead of me. The buildings seemed to be more disrepaired the further from the cloister we got. The wall protecting this side of the Abbey was downright shabby. Bricks lay in the grass, and moss was bursting out of the mortar. Is the hospitalum not part of the Abbey? It was built much further away than is useful, I must say. Are you all right? You're a bit pale. It had just struck me that I was about to leave the confines of the Abbey hardly a day after being ripped from my cell. Compared to my organized existence in that small room, the corridors and cloister already felt like a whole new world. Stepping beyond those walls felt like a whole new level of transgression. I'm all right. We'll take a break right here for the next episode.